you at New Orleans. And hello to all my friends elsewhere, everywhere out there who are really getting sick and tired of people like I am. I have a gripe to get off my chest before we get to the meat of this show this afternoon. And we're going to do it all coming up along with Brandon Clark talking about Christian Clark coming up talking about the Brandon Ingram injury and how that will affect the Pelicans. Lisa Stockton, the Tulane women's basketball coach, 30 years at Tulane. She's retiring. She's coming on the show today. And a special extra point that is all about a former NFL commissioner no one ever thought hated the city of New Orleans. They told me a month ago, by the way, when I decided my podcast would be my full-time job, I could handle it however I wanted and say whatever I wanted. We're going to put that on to the test. It's all coming up next on what I hope is not the final Dattitude.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Everybody, we're back. We are ready to get going. We have so much going on today. You know, I often say about how a jam-packed show. I'm just telling you, today is going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward today. Got to get that gripe off my chest first, but we got to do the introductions. They tell me that I have to do this. This is, after all, Dattitude episode number 218 for a Friday, March the 22nd, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Derry. You're watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listening to the podcast. As always, I thank you for being a part of the show. Again, like we told you, Christian Clark coming on, the Brandon Ingram injury. If you did not see it, a hyperextended left knee. He is going to be out a minimum of 2 weeks. How is that going to affect the Pelicans? Well, obviously, it's going to affect them. You take your second leading scorer off the team, and it's going to be a big deal. We're going to talk about that. Lisa Stockton recorded an interview with her this morning. Love it. Love that she was able to come on after retiring and talk about it and what it meant to her, what Tulane's meant to her. 30 years at the same place. Now, see, I've been here for 33 years, but it's kind of been off and on because, they let me go, they bring me back. They let me go, they bring me back. Who knows? They might let me go again after my rant today. Our extra point is on Pete Rozelle. A special anniversary of sorts with him. No Saints today. Not a whole lot to talk about. We will be back talking about them next week as we begin to shift all of our attention to the draft and start speculating which players might be on the board when the Saints pick at 14. But first, those of you who have listened to the show for more than 10 or so times, you know a whole lot about me because I don't hold anything back. I tell you about my personal lives, talk about my kids, talk about my 25-year-old know-it-all son, all the goofy things he says, those sorts of things. But today I have a confession. I am really beginning to dislike, people. I especially dislike people who drive anywhere within 50 feet of me, although I'm generally talking about those who are within 2 feet of my back bumper. When do we all start driving like obnoxious, inconsiderate a-holes hopped up on some sort of amphetamines? I'm kind of dancing around like that right now. I can't hold it in anymore. How many of you feel the way that I do? I need to know. How many of you feel the way that I do in the fact that you could tell everything you need to know about someone by the way they drive? My wife says that I'm actually an obnoxious, inconsiderate a-hole for even thinking that way. But really, I had a moment today which reminded me that I wanted to talk about stupid people on this show today, just for a minute. Christian's waiting, so I'm not going to go on too long. We went to one of my favorite places for lunch this afternoon, as I often do. Free plug, by the way, Mandeville Seafood. If you've never been, it's worth the drive over. During Lent, it's usually impossible to find a parking spot. Sometimes you have to park across the street and walk across a busy highway to get in. Then, of course, you have to wait 10 or 15, sometimes 20 minutes. No big deal, though. Today, I got super lucky. Someone was pulling out of one of the 3 spots right by the front door, and bingo. However, when I was leaving, there was a line of cars coming in. I knew everyone was going to want my spot, as they always do. Meanwhile, there were 2 cars leaving that I had to wait for so I could actually get out of my spot. And, of course, someone starts blowing that horn at me because they didn't like my deliberation. They have no clue why I was just sitting there. Just sitting there because, I want to piss you off. That's why I was sitting there. So I was really, but afterward the fact, I thought about it, I drove off. I'm really upset with myself that I didn't sit there for like 5 minutes until they decided to go across the street with everyone else. It isn't your spot until you get out of it. I mean, do you agree with me or not? I mean, if I decide to go into my car and scroll the NCAA tournament scores for 10 minutes, I have a right to relinquish my rights to the parking spot whenever I want, right? Come on. But does that make me the jackwad jerk my wife says I am? I mean, y'all can let me know. You can comment here, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or you can email me at jderry@theadvocate.com. Let me know what you think. I don't know. Let me know. We're going to get into it with Christian now. I hear that I hope everything is okay. Can you hear me okay, Christian? I'm being told by Gabe my connection's a little choppy this afternoon.
Audio is great.
Okay. So my video is a little choppy. We're going to work on that. I had a little problem this morning with Coach Stockton. So if I'm a little choppy out there, we're going to work on that for next time. But what I want to get into with you anyway is talking about the Pelicans, and you're going to do most of the talking. So I'm just going to set you up here. I asked you yesterday before the game if you could come on today, having no clue. I thought we were going to spend the day talking about Zion Williamson. Well, obviously, that's not the story of the day. The story of the day is Brandon Ingram getting hurt last night in the third quarter. Hyperextending a knee. I did read your story. Obviously, they're saying at least 2 weeks. But to me, Christian, what worries me is it could be longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like the key thing to know is they're saying he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. And that's, like a little bit of language that a lot of NBA teams, including the Pelicans, use. It doesn't mean he's going to be back in the court in 2 weeks. It means we're going to take another look at this in 2 weeks. I mean, look, the play-in tournament starts April 16th. The playoffs start April 20th. So, we're about a month out from the playoffs.
Right.
I think it's just kind of TBD whether they're going to have Brandon Ingram at all for the rest of the regular season. They got 13 games left. There's really a lot at stake. I mean, the Pelicans would really like to finish 4th, 5th, or 6th. I mean, they do not want to drop down to 7th to 8th and have to fight their way into the playoffs via the play-in tournament. That's what they did under the first 2 years with Willie Green, and that's going to be the challenge. Can they stay at 5th? Can they hold at 6th without Brandon Ingram for these next handful of games here?
Well, I mean, speaking of that, I put the standings up on the screen, at least where the Pelicans sit. And, just a few days ago, they were 5 games back. The Clippers had lost to the Hawks, and it looked like the Pels were in a great situation. But, they just can't. They have it seems like they have rougher times against the Eastern Conference teams, at least somewhat. Last night, and then they're playing a Miami team tonight that they haven't beaten on the road in 7 years. So just talk a little bit about how key the stretch is that's coming up. And we got the schedule, at least their upcoming schedule, and you see they're playing at Miami, at Detroit, and then they come home for a really long homestand, which can help them, but they're playing the team. I mean, they are going through a gauntlet when they come back home.
Look, that's exactly right. I thought Thursday's game in Orlando was fascinating, even throwing out, Brandon Ingram's unfortunate injury. I think like the Pelicans and the Magic, who they're going to play again here coming up, like they're kind of mirror images of each other to me. I mean, young teams who have really taken a step this year. Their best players are forwards, Brandon and Zion for the Pels, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner for the Magic. Really good defensive teams, teams that don't shoot a ton of threes. So I think they have a lot of common. And, it was really interesting to see that battle between like Zion try to drive it down their throats and getting guarded by Paolo, getting guarded by Jonathan Isaac. The Pelicans shot 6 of 20 from 3. Like they needed to loosen up the floor for Zion last night. They weren't able to do that. And, this stretch coming up, especially, you know, this 6-game homestand after these next 2 on the road is going to be very difficult. You really like to get this Miami game, and I would say Sunday is like, you know, that's pretty close to a must win. Like you just have to beat Detroit with what you've got coming up after that.
Yeah. You talk about that, and I think, you know, tonight you'll learn about where this team is and how much Brandon Ingram's going to affect them. Can they get past this? And you know, I say in the open and talk about here we go again. Kind of, we put that in the graphic, and it just makes you wonder. It's like, is this team snake bit a little bit? You talk about being a month away from the playoffs, but the last 4 times this team has been in the playoffs, one of their key players has been injured, and here, you know. What worries me, if Brandon Ingram can't come back in 2 weeks, he will have an MRI done. So I mean, there's no definitive thing that says he's going to come back then. I mean, you start wondering about where this team is, and here we go again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously not great news. I mean, look, I think that of like all the options, this is about the best case scenario. I mean, you're just glad that he didn't, you know, tear a ligament or anything like that. And
Right.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but like teams are going through this. Like the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team the Pelicans very well could face in the first round of the playoffs. Karl-Anthony Towns, you know, out with the torn meniscus right now. Like that's another one where they're saying we could come back maybe for the playoffs, but like he's dealing with something. You know, it sounds like something even more serious than Brandon. So it is really unfortunate. I honestly do think the Pelicans have the personnel to survive this in the short term. I mean, obviously they're not like they're a worse team without Brandon Ingram. I mean, he's their second best player, no question about it. But Trey Murphy can step into the starting lineup. I mean, not a lot of NBA teams have a 6'10" guy normally coming off the bench who can hit shots from 30 feet and dunk on the basket. 21 points off the bench for Trey Murphy last night. I think he offensively is a really clean fit next to Zion Williamson. You know, like the Pelican starters have actually like not played great together this year. So I'm really not like overly concerned about the starting lineup and how it fits together. You know, I think like the biggest concern without Brandon is when Zion sits on the bench, Brandon keeps a lot of those bench units afloat with just like a creator. And I think that's where, you know, they'll really hurt. But I do think like the Pelicans, you know, have the guys and the guys specifically in Trey Murphy to be okay in the interim.
What you know, you talk about Trey Murphy, and I love the way he's been playing as of late. You know, last night was the first time I was listening to the radio, first time all season that they lost the game when he scored 16 points. Do you think he can handle this load?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Trey Murphy started 65 games for the Pelicans last season. Last season was not a very fun one for the Pelicans with the amount of games that Zion and Brandon missed. I think one of the silver linings of the way it went was Trey Murphy was asked to do a lot, and he actually, you know, did really, really well last year. He was dang near a 50, 40, 90 guy. I mean, he's just, you know, he could be just a guy who scores in bunches at times. So look, he's playing great basketball right now. I feel pretty good about him just getting a little bump up in terms of his role.
Yeah, I want to apologize to everybody out there. I am having some sort of network issue, apparently. As long as you can hear me, I'm going to try to fix it when we go through the course of the Lisa Stockton interview coming up in a minute. But before I let you go, I do want to talk again, Christian. I want you to reemphasize about this stretch that's coming up. And you see it's 5 games out of the next 6 are at home. They actually have another home game after that that's at home. But Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, Boston, Phoenix, Orlando, man, it doesn't get any tougher than that.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is kind of, you know, like going to be a defining stretch of the season, I think. You know, this Pelicans team, its record against teams above 500 is actually pretty good. If you really look at that, they have benefited a little bit from like teams above 500 hurt or resting guys on that night, but like they do have some really quality wins under their belt this season. I mean, they're capable of like beating a Milwaukee at home, I think. I mean, the way that last Phoenix game went, I mean, Phoenix came in and just like put it on the Pelicans in Smoothie King Center. So I would imagine the Pelicans are going to be really motivated for that game. And Devin Booker just killed them. And Orlando, I mean, it's kind of nice to get a rematch so soon after losing in Orlando. I mean, I would imagine they're going to be motivated too. I mean, it was really fun to see Zion and Paolo Banchero, two former number one picks who went to Duke, like guarding each other and going at each other. So, I mean, I'm really excited to get to watch part two here in not too long.
Me too as well. Christian, I want to have you back on the show again in a week or so, if you don't mind. I hate to cut this short. Luckily I recorded the clip with Coach Stockton a little bit earlier. I'm going to try to fix my internet situation during her interview. And we will have you on again next week if you have time to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to, Jim. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot. Christian Clark here on the Dattitude podcast. Again, I apologize for my issues. I'm going to get right into the Lisa Stockton interview. Again, try to fix my internet issues, and hopefully when I come back, we'll be fixed. Again, just to introduce Coach Stockton, retiring after 30 years at Tulane. We'll hear what she has to say right now. Welcoming into the Dattitude podcast this afternoon, Tulane women's basketball coach Lisa Stockton. I'm honored to have you on the show, Coach. You have been a fixture and a mainstay in not just New Orleans, but Louisiana sports over the past 3 decades. And, when I heard about you retiring, even though, you and I both been in the same circles for 30 years, and it's amazing that we've never met, but I'm so honored to have you on the show here and talk a little bit about your career.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you reaching out. And as I told you, I'm at the beach right now, so it didn't take me long to get down here.
I see that, Coach. Your transformation in the next part of your life is you're doing it right away.
Well, I'm going to begin it here. I'm just going to take a little break and kind of relax a little bit.
Coach, tell me a little bit about, before we talk about your career, what came into this decision? I know I can't imagine how tough a decision this would be this is what you've done for more than half of your life. You've been a coach at Tulane, and I know how much the community loves you, how much you just love Tulane, and the people of Tulane love you. So how tough was this decision for you to make?
Gosh, I think it's not something you make very quickly. I think it's over time. And, it definitely was something that over time you just kind of have to really evaluate just your priorities. What are you doing? And I've got a lot of family in North Carolina. I've lost my dad in the last 3 years, and I lost my brother-in-law last year. And there's just a lot of things that kind of make you think about some things. But, if I ever thought I was really walking away from New Orleans or Tulane, it would have been impossible to make. But I'm not. And I think that's where I got to, is that I think there's so many things I can still do in this community, and there's so many things I can do on the national scene that just will require me to do a little something different.
What do you plan to do going forward? I know a lot of people are interested. You say you're going to stick with Tulane and part of what's going on there. What is the next chapter, or at least the next immediate chapter for Lisa Stockton hold?
Well, I think that the immediate one is to do nothing for a while. I think that's one of those things that I've never done. I went from being an athlete to grad school to my first job. I think I had 3 weeks from the day I graduated grad school to when I started my first job at 23. So I'm going to try to do nothing. I've got a lot of people I need to go visit, a lot of making up for aunt duty that I'm planning on doing. But I think we're going to kind of create that a little bit. I've talked to some people, and again, kind of a little bit more on the national scene. Even helping out at Tulane, there's some things there that I'm interested in. So I think it's going to be something I'm going to put together piece by piece, and kind of see what excites me.
Do you plan on remaining in New Orleans?
Oh yeah. I've got a place in Pensacola that I never get to, so that's why I'm here now. And a place in New Orleans. New Orleans is home to me. I said that like when I came here for a job and found a home. New Orleans is home. It's the greatest city to me, and I would love any way I can to give back to the community. This community has been so supportive of me over the years, and whatever I can do for whether it's sports or anything else in the community, I'm in.
Coach, can you even fathom how tough it's going to be? Obviously for coaches, especially on the college scene, when your season's over, you basically dive right into recruiting. And right. There's not a whole lot of time off for a major major sport coach in college, in the college landscape. How tough do you think, how weird do you think that's going to be for you to not do that?
It would be really strange. I think up until probably the last 3 or 4 years, the spring wasn't as hectic. We at Tulane, we usually signed an early class and recruited mostly freshmen. That was our focus. Before the portal in the spring, we had a little time, and then we had April recruiting. So really, that change has been since the portal opened and the transfers and all those things. But I will tell you, I've had 2 days, and I have slept through the night on both those days, and I think I'm a little stress free. So I'm going to try to enjoy the lack of stress right there for now. But yes, it's going to be a major adjustment for me. I mean, I'm used to just going 100 miles an hour, so it's going to be an adjustment.
Coach, when you played that last AAC tournament game, obviously you knew that you were going to retire. Was it going through your head throughout the game, and what were your emotions going through that game?
Well, I think 2 things. I think my last game in Devlin was, to me, was just like walking in there for the last time and walking out of there for the last time. I felt like Drew Brees. I wanted to look over my shoulder, and but it was that was really, really so emotional because I love that place. I think the last game, we had 3 really intense games up until that point. Yeah. In the last game, It was one that, first of all, I was just so proud of how our kids gave everything. It's 3rd game, 3 nights and 3 overtimes, and they gave everything they could, and they were so upset. And I think my focus at that point was just how proud I was of them, that they that was kind of their gift to me, that they didn't know that they had really put it all out there. And I think as a coach, that's all you want. You just want them to put it out there every night and just extend themselves that way, and they did. So I think I was pretty grateful when that happened, because I think we kind of saw what this team was capable of at the end.
You played your best basketball there at the end of the season. Right. I know that has to make you happy about the way they were playing. What are you going to miss most, do you think?
Oh, there's so many things, but I think definitely the relationships with those players, those young people, they keep you young. I think being able to help them navigate things, navigate adversity, navigate life. I get on them pretty hard about what they're going to do after basketball, even at a young age. So I think I'll still have that role. I definitely think I'll still have that role a little bit. And my staff, my coaches have always been so close. We really always been a team. And this group, I had 2 alumni on my staff, and that made it a little more special. So those are the things I'll miss. And, like I said, Tulane's campus and being around Tulane, I plan to be there. So I'm not going to let myself miss that.
I'd say this all the time. Coaches really are moms and dads as much as they are coaches. And I don't think people out there realize, and that includes the college level. I mean, you're still dealing with kids. I mean, they might be, some of them might be legally adults, but you're still dealing with kids. And people don't know enough about what you guys do and being a part of their lives, and not just them how to play basketball.
Absolutely. And I think that, as a coach, and I said this, at the press conferences, I think our job is on the court, but our job is to direct them to get ready for life. And, some of that's basketball, some of that's picking a major, some of that's just trying to work through things. And I think that's an important part of coaching that people probably don't look at enough, especially in this day and time. But, I think these young women that have gone through Tulane, I'm so proud of what they've been able to do. And, they're out there changing the world, and I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah, I've said it for 33 years that, sports is way more than sport. People who don't understand sports, it's way more than that. I say it forever, that sports teaches you how to be a contributing member to society, in my opinion. So, but I think we both feel the same way about that. I want to talk about your career. Obviously, 591 wins at Tulane, 654 over. You are the winningest coach in Louisiana women's basketball history, which is that's amazing. And to do that and to have the career and to be able to stay at the same place for so long, just talk about what is going to be, not necessarily the part of spending all this time with your girls, but just what do you take most from your career and what you were able to accomplish?
Well, I think, you come to a place and, that was a great opportunity for me as a young coach coming into Tulane, and just wasn't sure where my path would take me. And then it was great. We won and it was successful and I loved it. I love New Orleans, and all of a sudden 30 years later, I'm still there. So I think I'm so appreciative of being able to do it in one place, because during that time I've had the same type of athletes for 30 years have gone through that program, and I've seen the program grow. I've seen you talk about facilities and all those things. But I think, the landscape of college athletics has changed so much in that 30 years. In that first, 10 years, the Power Five didn't exist. I mean, Conference USA was just as competitive as the SEC. We were beating SEC teams consistently. And then the power structure changed a lot. I think one of the things that we've been able to do that I'm really proud of is that we've been able to sustain some success there, even as the landscape has changed. And, whether it's conference championships, access to the NCAA, where there's 4 at-large bids total for non-Power 5 schools. It's just so not there anymore. But we've been able to sustain some success there and, keep building within that. And I'm really proud of that, because it's been a roller coaster, and especially in the last 4 years.
When you get to these kind of numbers at any level, 650 something wins. 11 NCAA tournaments at Tulane, and you won, you went 9 years in a row at one point. Do you think about the accomplishments? What do these things mean to you? And I know coaches always say, coaches don't like to brag about themselves like that, but these numbers aren't just regular coaches' numbers. They're special. These are numbers that you're going to be remembered for a long time, not just the Tulane, around the New Orleans, Louisiana, really.
Oh, well, I think what you think about is just how many great players I've coached here. You look at, 5 WNBA players. Again, somebody like Colby Morgan, a local John Curtis kid who, stayed for 4 years and scored over 2,000 points. Unfortunately for her, she came along when UConn was in our league, so she didn't get to cut down a lot of nets.
Right.
But I just think about, just those great players. And again, I brag about our Louisiana players. I think about them and just, what they were able to contribute. I've had amazing coaches that have done that. I think that's been seeing some of those coaches and that coaches tree and those players that are now coaches has been really special. But, we won a lot, so I was able to stay. That was also fun, We won a lot, and I was able to stay at Tulane for 30 years. If we didn't win,
that makes it a little bit easier.
Be somewhere else, it makes it easier, right?
Well, I'm a little biased, but I covered Kyron Wilton for 6 years at Northlake Christian, so I'm a little biased as far as your favorite play. I love her, and I love what she's, what a leader she is, and you've had a lot of leaders throughout the way, and I know. Do you think about the ones when you first started? Do you think about those first few years a lot? How much do you think about that?
I think about it a lot. Like Barbara Ferris was on my first team.
Yeah.
She's coaching now at Southern Miss. And
she's a great coach.
Barbara, she is. And Barbara played, the WNBA and the ABL and all that for a long time. And God, I was like, oh, what a gift. I came in and she was a freshman. What a gift on that. And
that's amazing.
I laugh at it all the time because, she was one of those players that was, I say it, I said she would roll her eyes, and all that kind of stuff. But when it came to game time, that girl played. She was competitive. So, I think about those early years and just how fortunate I was that we were able to have success early. Because we had success early, I was able to recruit the Grace Dailies and the Janelle Burses and all those other people that came after because they wanted to be a part of what we were doing. So, I think that really set us up for the future, and we were able to build on it the whole time I was here.
Should they stay in touch with you? And I know, you talk about Coach Farris. Roll her eyes or whatever when it came to game, and the same at John Curtis when she was coaching there. And I know you don't mess with Barbara Farris. I'm just saying that.
No,
you just don't.
No, not at all. Barbara and I are pretty close. She we communicate quite frequently, and really. I've been so fortunate that I communicate with a lot of those players, and social media is our connection. But they come in town, I think the adjustment they'll have is when they come in town, I'm always there. I'm always their coach.
Yeah.
And so I think, there's just a little family. There's that Tulane family, that connection that we all have. We've got, I think I have 8 or 9 Hall of Famers since I've been there that I've coached. And, I've been able to go and watch all of them get in the Hall of Fame. And you talk about something special. I love Tulane, and then these kids are getting in the Hall of Fame. So that's been amazing. There's just been so many great moments like that. And, I'm going to go back. You talked about Kyron Whittington. She's got another year. I thought she had a fabulous year this year. I'm excited to see what she can do next year. So, it doesn't end. My connection with them doesn't end just because somebody else is going to be in that seat. I'm so excited to see what they're going to be able to do.
Lastly, Coach, we'll go out on this. I think I know the answer, but I want you to put it in your words. What has Tulane meant to you throughout the years when you spent half your life at one place that you probably didn't expect to spend half your life at? What has it meant for you to be over there?
Well, I think Tulane's special because Tulane is just a community. It's not so like we know everybody. We know everybody on the other side of campus. It's really special community. And to me, I think one of the reasons I stayed, we had success, but one of the reasons I stayed, it was such a great fit for me. The fact that I could bring young women in there and they get that degree, and I've seen what that university has meant to these women as they leave here. It's a great education. I would tell anybody if they can send their child there, they should go. So I really believe in it. So if you ask me what it means to me, is it's something I've been able to sell for 30 years that I truly believe in. And I believe it will change their lives. And I've seen it happen.
Well, Coach, I hope you enjoy the next 30 years of your life, laying around on the beach, doing things you want to do. I know you're going to be here in New Orleans for most of it, but enjoy it, Coach. Enjoy retirement, and thank you for all you have given us in the sports department, and really just outside of that as well. And thank you for what sharing half of your life here in New Orleans. Thank you. And maybe our paths will cross again sometime. Would love it. Thank you. Lisa Stockton here on the Dattitude podcast. Well, hopefully we have our issues fixed. I had it a little bit there with Lisa Stockton. I've worked on some stuff over the past few minutes. That's the thing about I've done 218 of these episodes now. First time we've ever had a problem. I think I know what went wrong, but, we'll see what it is. All right. Gabe says we're all good. We are going to wrap the show with it. Sometimes you just have those days, too. You know what I mean? You just have those days. I was talking about earlier, I don't know how much you heard, didn't hear the opening about the car situation and driving with people, and maybe that's karma. Maybe that's me talking about people, and God said, you know what? Don't talk about people like that. So it is what it is. Maybe I should know better by now. Maybe my wife's right. I don't know. Let's go out on a good note. How about that? For today's extra point, we go back 35 years. If I can click on the right slide, I promise you we're going to go back 35 years. But I'm going to, as I do this, see, the slide's not even in here. It disappeared as well. I mean, that's what kind of day I'm having here, and now I have it up. I swear it's going to be okay. If you're listening to the podcast portion, you probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But anyway, for today's extra point, we go back 35 years to March 22nd, 1989, at the annual NFL owners meeting in Palm Springs, California. Commissioner Pete Rozelle announced that he would be retiring later that year. He would hand over the reins to Paul Tagliabue, who would hold the job until 2006, and then your favorite NFL commissioner stepped in. We're not going to talk about him today. Why is Rozelle retiring a big deal? Well, for those of you who don't know a ton about the history of the New Orleans Saints, it was Rozelle and the other owners back in 1966. That's before I was born, ladies and gentlemen, who decided to take a chance on the Big Easy. And that was before the Super Bowl era and 9 years before the Superdome was built. You see Rozelle here with the original Saints owner, John Meekum, over there. Oh, I guess over there. There you go. At the Pontchartrain Hotel to announce the birth of the team on November the 1st, 1966. Doug Thornton, a former director of the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, told Jeff Duncan, the NFL was a much different organization then, but it helped put New Orleans on the map as a sports town and helped shape our future. Boy, did it. And I ask this question often. Can you imagine this city without the New Orleans Saints, I know for me personally, there's a very realistic chance I never would have become a sports writer, and obviously wouldn't be sitting here today with my bad internet and our technical issues talking to you about the Saints or the Pelicans or any other sports team. Your Sundays in the fall and winter would be a whole lot different. There almost certainly would be no Superdome and no Smoothie King Center, which means no Pelicans either. We owed then, and still do really, a lot of gratitude to Pete Rozelle, who died in 1996 at the age of 70. I'm sure older fans of the Saints have a lot of love for old Pete, as do many other teams. Atlanta Falcons, I'm sure they feel the same way. Of course, many people had a hand in the birth of the Saints, but none of it happens without the backing of the former commissioner. I promise you, no one then thought the NFL hated the city of New Orleans. In fact, without Pete Rozelle, many of the people who live here right now might not think much about the NFL at all, or a ton about any other sports league, or any other sports commissioner. Just saying, without Pete Rozelle, I don't know that any of that happens. Well, that is going to wrap it up for our Fun Friday. I had so much fun. I know you did too. Look, thank you. If you made it through this entire show with me, see, it's people like you that I need in my life. I need the nice, wonderful, see, it's woo-saw moment. I need the nice, wonderful people like you in my life to help me get through all this. That is going to wrap it up for a Friday. We can all go watch LSU women's basketball now. There was an upset in the earlier part of the tournament, so if they win this, they got a clear sail into the Sweet 16, right? Going to find out. That will wrap it up. I want to thank Christian Clark for going through it all with me. He is going to come back next week. I've already talked to him via text. Lisa Stockton, thank her so much for coming on the show. Gabe Henderson back in the background. Look, Lisa, Coach Stockton wasn't great. She wasn't just great. She was fantastic. And I love, those are the kind of guests we want to have going forward on the show and talk about things around Louisiana, not just the Saints. It's not going to all be about the Saints. I know a lot of you love hearing about the Saints, but we like talking about other things too. A reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, and find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. We were going to see you on Monday. I will let you know who our guest is going to be then. Have a fantastic weekend with some glorious weather for a change. Glorious weather. Here I am talking about the weather again. We'll see you Monday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.